We know more about space than we know about the ocean. When you consider the effort and the amount of resources that have been put into trying to find a molecule of water on Mars, and yet every time you send a robot down to 3,000 meters or more in the ocean, you have a 50-50 chance of pulling up a new species. That's how little we know of it. Monterey Bay off California is the most explored bit of seafloor in the world. We've seen less than 1% of it. A lot of people associate the sea with being calm, and it's not. It's a massive area of dispute. It's in every way, it's a battleground. You've got fishermen fighting biologists for fishing rights. You've got nations fighting over rights of passage, and you've got recreational divers fighting trawlers over deep-sea mounts. It's untamed. You can't tame the sea because nobody owns it. Pirates are still around in a big way. They're not just motoring around in little inflatables. They're in fact operating from a mothership. If you can believe it, a pirate mothership in this day and age, fully equipped with GPS and satellite navigation and radar and everything, launching little subboats that'll go off and attack cruise liners and private yachts. And then we also have the more organized crime end of piracy that's really quite scary in where it takes us if we follow it to its logical conclusion, because we have pirates taking ships to order, changing their names, changing their outlines, and then changing their flag. And these ships are disappearing. They're disappearing for years on end. We know that Osama bin Laden has a fleet of 25 ships. Do we know where these ships are? Can we find them? No, we can't. Shipwrecks are basically a time capsule. They're sealed at the moment that they sank. You've got a vessel that left 200 years before Christ. It had its cargo that had been loaded that week. It's got the crew, and it's got all their personal possessions, and it's got everything on board, all of that time, and then suddenly they're taken by a storm. And instantly the curtain comes down and nothing can interfere with it anymore. It's like Pompeii or Herculaneum being overtaken by ash and lava from Vesuvius. It's sealed at the moment, and no one can interfere with it after that. One of the things people imagine alongside gold on shipwrecks is that they're full of skeletons and dead bodies floating around in the murk. In fact, the early explorers under the sea in the 50s, the Cousteaus and the Tailles and the Diolets and so on, went to great lengths to try and say, no, there are no skeletons on shipwrecks, and it's a myth and they all float off. But it's just not true, and there are skeletons on shipwrecks. I think my first skeleton experience was in Uruguay in South America, feeling my way along the bottom of Maldonado Bay near Punta del Este in very, very grim water, and putting my hand out and feeling what I thought was a cannonball on the seabed, and I sort of came close to it and peered around and suddenly realized it was a skull, not a cannonball, leering out of the seabed. And this was just one of 500 bodies on this Spanish troop ship called the San Salvador that had sunk only 300 meters from shore. In fact, on that ship we found the doctor, his wife and his child, all of whom had been trapped under the mast as it fell. Instruments, little nest weights, pestles and mortars and so on. And witnesses on the shore had seen him running off, and his wife had been trapped in the rigging, and he'd stayed with his wife and gone down. And that's one of those few times you can see historical accounts meshing with what you found underwater, which is really quite an incredible thing and really sends a chill down your spine. And that's why archaeology works for me. It's not about trying to make great breakthroughs in historical understanding, although it can do that. It's more about the everyday stories of the people living at the time. The everyday stories of these people are lost in historical literature, and archaeology can help bring it out from the seabed, from these nautical Pompeiis that is every shipwreck.